Welcome back to another instalment from my Vice. I hope you're all well. Tonight I am going to be tying a mini lure or streamer that has been doing the rounds over here in the UK a bit. It's very, very popular, based on a cat's whisker, but I quite like it because it's not as loud and leery as a standard cat's whisker, and it's a little bit smaller. So it works really well in and around the weed beds, takes are fairly savage. I've had a lot of success on it. So let's get on and give it a go. In the vise, I have a Togens wet fly hook in size 12, and on that I have got a 2.8mm brass fluorescent yellow bead. For the tail of the fly, I'm going to use some white turkey marabou. For the body of the fly, I'm going to use fluorescent chartreuse vicuna dubbing. For the rib, some pearl type mylar. No idea where I got that stuff from. The label has long fallen off, but I do like the colour. But sadly that's on its way out, but any pearl mylar will do. And then for the hackle, one of these beautiful jungle cock feathers, the ones from right at the top of the cape. They're really webby, they sit really nicely as a hackle, and they just work really, really well. We'll tie that in by the tip, I'll show you later on. And other than that, the thread I'm using is fluorescent chartreuse UTC 70. That's to blend in with the dubbing slightly. You could use white if you want to. Again, it doesn't make too much difference. The darker thread that you use, the muckier the dubbing will look. So it'll just get a bit dirty, which is no bad thing. I like to call this my dirty cat. But use a black thread, and the dubbing just comes through a little bit dirty when it gets wet. So if that's the look you're going for, then knock yourself out. But let's get on and tie. So as I say, size 12 hook, bead on. We want to take the thread in, not really touching turns, but down to the roughly the bend of the hook or opposite the barb, and then take it back up to the bead. Now all of my marabou tails I like to tie in at the bead, and we want a moderate pinch here, probably, I don't know, you see that, about an inch. We just rip that off the stem, bunch it all together, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snip off those curlies so that all the tips are lined up. I'm going to lick my fingers to make this a little bit more manageable so that it stops waving all over the place. And then all that fuzzy stuff you can see there, I'm just going to strip that off with my thumb and forefinger, just to reduce the bulk on the body. And it creates a much neater tie-in point as well. And then when we're there, we can tie it in behind the bead, make sure you trap it down nicely, and then work your way all the way down. And the reason for all of my flies that have marabou tails, I like to tie the marabou in behind the bead, is because working that way down the fly allows me to keep the tail bang on top of the body. The thread wraps, the tension from the thread wraps doesn't take the marabou around the hook, it reduces bulk. You're not working up to work back down. You've got complete control over the material. You can hold it on top of the shank. So for me that works really well. And then when we've got to where I want to be, which is just as the bend starts, I'm going to do 2 turns underneath the marabou just to try and help it stop spinning in the cast and getting wrapped around the hook bend. And then what we want to do is pinch the tail off now, and I like the tail on this fly to be short, so I'm just going up that first kink on my HMH vise. Oopsie. There we go. We're going to take that off, bring that down a bit so that it's back in focus. There we go. Hopefully you can still see that. And we're good to go. Next in, before we dub the body, we're going to wrap in the rib. As I say, it's this mylar stuff, and I'm just going to use the thread, the weight of the bobbin holder. There we go. Just to hold that on there whilst I catch it down. And then we're going to take the thread back down there, stick the mylar in the materials clip, and then get some dubbing on. Now, for this body, you can have a carrot shape, you can have a straight up and down, it's entirely up to you. But as with dubbing, less is more. So create a thin dubbing noodle. As you can see, that's quite a thin dubbing noodle. And then you can always come back, dub some more on later on. It's much easier than trying to take some off. But you want to start right at the base. Here we go. And then just work your way up the hook shank slowly, making it nice and even. I'm going to start doing a slight carrot shape. Keep tightening the dubbing as you go. And what you do need to be careful of, mylar rib is slippy. So if there are any lumps and bumps in your dubbing, you can guarantee that the mylar will find those lumps and bumps and slip off the end or slip into them, and you'll be left with a slightly uneven rib. And I'm sure the fish don't give two hoots, frankly, but it really annoys me. I like a nice even rib on my flies. So I'm not sure fish care, but I do. It's all about confidence, isn't it? You're confident in the flies that you fish. You're going to fish them better. You're going to concentrate more. Right. So it feels nice and even. We're then going to take this, and I'm counter wrapping this because I've wrapped the mylar on my side of the thread. If I bring it towards you over the top, the tension is going to pull the marabou. If I go counter wrapping and go under first, I'm immediately wrapping away from that marabou, which means it doesn't get twisted. I'm just going to do nice, even ribs. You're only going to get 2 or 3 really. There we go, and it's going to go in behind the bead. And I come around a couple of times in front, a couple of times behind, a couple more times in front, just to make it nice. There we go, and we're going to snip off the excess. Now frankly, you could leave that there. That looks pretty good, but we're going in with this hackle. And because we're tying it in by the tip, we're going to take our hackle pliers and we're going to catch the tip of the feather to give us a tie-in point, and then we're going to pull all of those fibres away, and you can see how webby it is. They just stay where they're put. It's amazing stuff to give you that little triangular shape that we're going to tie in by. I need some wax. Where have I put my wax? Excuse the rattling. Just to I don't use wax to dub with, but I do use wax for grip when I'm tying in feathers. So we're just going to put a little bit of wax on there. There we go. And then I'm going to tie this in shiny side towards me. If it behaves itself, which I'm sure it will once I tell it to. Got it. There we go. 3 good turns, and the wax is going to stop that slipping out, and then we snip off that tag end, and then it's just a question of taking the hackle pliers, and we're going to do what's called double hackling here. So we're going to hold that up, just wet our fingers slightly, and pull all those fibres backwards. And what that does is it stops or minimises the number of fibres that point forwards as you're wrapping a hackle, and it means that both sets of fibres are pointing backwards, and it also means that as you wrap, the rachis, the bit up the middle of the feather, is what's laying down on the hook. It's not feather fibres. There we go. You can see that's a bit leery, but you get the idea. It looks good. I think that's probably enough. I don't want to over hackle this. And then we're going to come through, pull everything back, couple in front of the feather, couple behind. There we go, and then snip off your excess. And what I like to do when I'm with feathers, I don't stick my scissors in and then snip, because that potentially snips some hackle. If you do a tiny little V in your scissors, you can just push that up the stem of the feather, and the sharpness just nicks it off anyway, and you don't then cut any of these hackle fibres that you've spent a nice bit of time wrapping round. Okay, so it's looking pretty good. I don't know why it's sticking there, but nonetheless that's looking pretty good. And we're just going to do a tiny little bit more dubbing on the thread, and then whip finish, and we are good to go. So I'm going to use that dubbing as part of the whip finish. Here we go. Just so that the, here we go. And then we're going to do a second whip finish as well, just so that the dubbing cloaks the, just touches the hackle fibres, pushes it backwards. And snip off the excess. And then if you want to, you can get your dubbing brush, just give it a quick brush out. There you have it. There you have it. That is the Dirty Cat. Works really, really well. Feel free to let me know how you get on. You can find me on Facebook or on Instagram or via the Togens website. Until we meet again, tight lines. Good luck. Thanks.